This is the Misdirected Mark Podcast, a podcast about gaming, game mastering, and entertaining you, our listeners. We are explicit, you have been warned, and I'd like to thank Mike Willard for letting us use his music on our show. Now let's pick up those mics and get on with this thing.
All right, are you two coming? I'm down here.
I'm on my way.
Yeah, me too.
So, this is the new place. I've been in this part of the house, Misdirected.
Yeah, it's the den.
Yeah, we don't use it very often, but this is like where we relax and chat. Like after this weekend, like I figured we, take a little downtime, discuss the show, figure out what we're doing.
Yeah, it's already Tuesday. The show just started.
I guess we're going to need to do this without a topic then.
I mean, not a problem. I got us covered. We've had this emergency before, and we'll just do what we did last time to get us through, which is we're going to do some viewer mail.
Great. So with that, welcome to the 456th episode of the Misdirected Mark Podcast. Tonight, we're going to answer some of your questions from your short forms. Along the way, we'll take your suggestions, examples, and comments live from the Chat Room for Life on Twitch before jumping into the after show. But first, my name is Jerry.
My name is Phil.
And I am Old Man Logan. And I feel like it today.
Yeah.
All right. It's time for our temperature check. Let's see how everybody's doing. Phil, how you feeling?
Physically, fine. I mean, I got my hair cut, so pretty pleased with that. Mentally pretty junky. Had a shitty day at work that has snowballed into a pretty good bout of onset of a good bout of depression coming on. So I'm feeling it. But otherwise, I'm healthy. Getting my booster on Sunday.
Nice.
How about you, Bob?
Mentally, I'm a solid okay. Physically, I'm a little jacked up today. My shoulder's been giving me a bunch of trouble. My neck decided it was going to be cranky today, and I've got some kind of gastric thing going on, and I'm like, really? That's all right, fine, whatever.
And yet you made it here.
Yes. So
a dedication to your craft, my friend.
I too am getting my booster. My booster is scheduled for next Tuesday afternoon. So that'll be out of the way, and there we go. Jerry, how you feeling?
Better now. The up and down weather we have affects my sinuses. I'm good if it's rainy. I'm good if it's sunny. I'm good if it's hot. I'm good if it's cold. These days when it's hot today and freezing tomorrow and back up, that just throws my sinuses all off. So I've been a little stuffed up. I'm probably a little nasally tonight, but took my meds and I'm feeling good. And I get my booster tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to it. So also get my flu shot same time. So apparently you can get them both. So get them both, get all set up. Yeah, it was really easy to do. Just Lily got me set up for Rite Aid, I think. So 5 minutes on, you're done. So it looks good. All right, then.
Excellent. Yeah, let's roll on over into the one thing. This past weekend, I actually finally got to use my fancy gaming table for gaming. Hey,
right.
It's been basically a collection point for stuff since I moved into my condo.
Do you not eat at it?
Generally, no. I usually end up eating over by the TV, but
yeah,
it depends. I think I did eat there once since I've been here, but yeah, it's it got cleaned off, and the dining topper came off, and the playing surface was used, and we'll get into that more in the later segments. But yeah, that was a nice moment. I was like, yay, finally getting to use the gaming table. How about you, Jerry?
Mine is going to be, we played a game of Knights Black Agents with special guest star. And once again, that game is really handling investigation, action, and just character like role-playing very, very well.
Special guest star. Ooh.
Yes, we got to play. We got to move a little forward. Each week, we're gaining more and more information about who and what we're facing and exactly what kind of dangers we're into. and when we work together, it goes well. And I think something I really like is when we have a plan, the group works together, and with a few minor snafus, we pull it off. With minimal body count this time, which was good. It was just a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to the next one. So, Bill?
So let me just first say that we had Schmitty in town for the past week, which is who played it over with Bob on game night. Jerry, Schmitty, and I. Schmitty was our guest star for NBA as well. And then on Thursday, we all went and saw the Eternals as a group. So went and checked that out. I rather liked the Eternals quite a bit. It's not your standard Marvel movie. I'm not going to give any spoilers or anything. It's a bit more on the melodrama side of things. I've heard a few people say like they would like to have been a series. I think it actually would have made a pretty kick-ass series, not necessarily the same inciting event. But I think those characters are plenty interesting that a full series could have been done for it. But as a movie, I was very pleased with it. It will go up there as one of my more favorite Marvel movies. It will definitely be it's definitely up there on my list. If you are a fan of the more traditional Marvel movies, your End Games, your lots of punchy superhero stuff, this might not be your jam. You might not like it as much. But again, like I said, I thought I had some good drama. I thought the characters and cast were pretty excellent. And yeah, I liked it overall. So it's good. I would see it again.
I think it had as much punchy as probably like Captain America, the first Captain America movie. There's actually a lot of action in that movie. It's a long movie. It's a good movie, but it's a long movie. It's 2.5 hours long.
It is 2 hours and 40 minutes. It's not for the faint of heart.
I mean,
I wouldn't rush to take kids to go see it.
No.
I don't think it's a kids movie, not in material. I just don't think it's a kids movie in terms of pacing.
I thought there's 7 or 8 action sequences in that movie.
Yeah, I mean it's not bereft of action.
No, not at all.
But the story's not really
about the action.
Exactly.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah, I mean I always like when Marvel takes different styles of movies and makes Marvel movies from them. So, but yeah, the Eternals. So good times. I do want to make mention as we head into the announcements, some scheduling stuff. So tonight's the 16th of November. We're recording. This episode will drop right before Thanksgiving Day. So that would be the 23rd. I have every intention for us to record on the 23rd, which means there will be an episode on the 30th. But we will not be recording on the 30th because I'm not going to write a show over Thanksgiving weekend. And on top of that, I have an event on the 30th that I need to attend. So we'll not be recording on the 30th, which means the episode on the 7th of December will be missing. We'll mention it again next week, but just to put that in people's minds, the post-Thanksgiving episode, which again is always delayed 1 week because we record them a week live and drop them a week later. And then as we head into December, we'll talk a little bit about holiday schedules and things like that. At some point, we'll take a hiatus heading into the holidays, but we'll tell you more about that after we figure it out because we haven't talked about it yet. But all right, that's all I got for announcements. I would plug. I would like to plug that. What is it? Rich Ruane's game, which the name eludes me at the moment because I'm having one of those Moonlight.
Yes.
Bob will search for it really quickly. I'm going to plug it, but I believe the Kickstarter will be over by the time this drops. So here's hoping you already backed it. It's funded. It's hitting stretch goals. It's doing a good job.
Yes, there are 7 days to go, so it will be over by the time we do the show next week. It's Moonlight on Roseville Beach, the queer game of disco and cosmic horror. They have funded, so
funded and kickstarted, like funded and stretch gold.
Yep.
The stretch goals are pretty like they're pretty good. It's like more artwork, more pay for everybody. Those are stretch goals I can get behind.
Yeah, those are always good ones.
But sadly, it'll be over. Although I tip my hat to Rich, a 2-week Kickstarter run on a very tight built Kickstarter. I like the way that looks. It's good.
Yeah. All right.
I guess the other thing we need to mention, just if there's any disruption, hopefully we'll try to keep it to the after show. But at 8:30 Eastern, as we're recording this in a mere 20 minutes or so, at some point after 8:30 Eastern, the Spider-Man trailer will drop. In all likelihood, multi-monitor Bob will be watching it silenced or not on one monitor.
I'll be good.
I'm going to do my best.
Watch the trailer. I'll just.
What's it?
I said I'll be good. I won't actually watch it until after.
Okay.
I can hold my.
I mean, we'll try to keep it under control until the after show. But the internet should explode in about 20 minutes. So. All right. I think that's all we got.
All right. Well, that means it's time for the workshop. So gird yourself, Phil.
Yep.
And
oh shit! I gotta do. Oh. I don't think we can do workshop. Oh.
No?
Yeah, this is workshop. Just minor projects. These are just little house projects. That's all.
All right, hang on. All right, you ready?
Let's do it.
Workshop. We didn't have time to write an episode because Schmitty was here and we were doing stuff and hanging out and being cool and stuff like that. So now we got to just get questions from people online and answer them on the fly here on the show in the workshop.
And hopefully it doesn't suck.
There we go. How was that? I mean, I think it's about as honest of a segment as opener as we get.
Oh, man.
All right. So this week, Schmitty was in town and hung out with us, so we had a great time. We did a lot of combination of game stuff and geek stuff, and actually did a lot of theory talking and stuff. But being that Schmitty was here and we hung out, well, Bob and I hung out with him almost every night, and I think Phil hung out with him every night. It meant that we didn't get a lot of work done on the show. So we ran out of time to come up with a good topic, or at least not enough time to write up any detailed show notes. But we didn't want to leave you all hanging, so we went to Slack and Twitter and put a call for some questions you might have. And tonight, in the spirit of early David Letterman, we're going to answer some viewer mail. So which one of us ends up being Paul in that case? Bob?
Well, by hair, it's not me.
Okay. Bob?
Sure,
Cool.
Why not?
All right. Good. You can give us a rendition of It's Raining Men later on tonight.
No.
This will be done in the spirit of roundtable segments of the show where one of us poses a question and the rest can take turns answering them. We've already gotten a number of questions. It might be more than we can answer. So tonight, Bob is going to manage the segment by keeping an eye on the time for us. When we hit the midway point, we're going to stop for a break. And when time is up, we'll simply move on to the community corner. But, Bob?
Yeah, so we're going to start off with this question. Our friend Jim asked us, why might you set up a game for troop play, and how do you do it?
Sure. I'll take first crack at this. So I think any game will support troop play for starters, right? Like, I think that, if you want to, and you just want to have everybody have 2 or 3 characters, it's cool, right? Like, I think there's a
define troop play for everybody though.
Sure. If we're going to do definitions and stuff. Sure. I'm joking. It's our show. That's what we do. Troop play is like when every player has multiple characters, and that you kind of assemble the troop for a given session, right? Or a given part of a session or whatever. So, traditionally in role-playing games, right, we've have the one character to one player, right? The player personifies a character, and that's it, right? Like, whatever your group is, that's like all the characters you got, right? That's your party. Yeah. When you do troop style, right, like everybody has multiple ones, or the other way is like you can have more people than you normally have playing in a given night, right? So like there's 2 ways to do this, right? The idea is you wind up having more characters than what forms the party. I want to specifically focus on the one where players play multiple characters. And and only because we all know the background of Jim's question, so I'll actually just delve into it a little when we were talking to Jim about this. Jim's playing Conspiracy X, which is a game that has wonderful investigation stuff, but it also has a fairly lethal combat system. And it's really hard, as Bob will remember, it is really hard to be good at too many things in that game. Like your character's point, it's a point buy system. You tend to be good at like a couple things. And then if you are less than good, right, rating 2, you basically suck, right? Like there's a sharp bell curve in that game. I should say not sharp, narrow bell curve in that game between what you are good at and what you will struggle with. So anyway, Jim was talking about the perils of that game and how quickly he's afraid some of the investigative type characters are going to get murdered, when we suggested you should go to a troop style game and let everyone also make a combat guy, a combat character, right? An alt, so that you can mix and match. And sometimes you can have combat people, and sometimes you can do investigative things, and sometimes you can mix and match them if somebody needs cover, like going to a hostile site or something like that. So anyway, the idea being that everybody make more than one character, and there's it flies in the face of the normal convention that like you should only have one character, like get into your character or whatever. But I don't know, I kind of think now that might just be bullshit. Like like we also thought you shouldn't talk about what's going on in the game during the game. We all figured out the game was better for it. Maybe this is actually the solution to a number of other problems. But in Jim's case, Troop Play was definitely a good suggestion to go, where this game has like 2 very distinct things it does, right? It does investigation, it does fighting, and it might be good to have characters that focus in both of those things. If you're going to do it, I think you could inject it into a game at any time. You could pause a game, make up some characters and play, but like it would be good if you were thinking about it up front to just drop it into your session 0. And I think you just, I don't think it would be a thing where every player has to do it. I don't think you have to force every player to make extra characters, but right. I think you could leave the door open for it. Right. So that's my thoughts about it. Right. I think we don't do it enough. I don't think we entertain the idea enough. And I think we don't give players enough credit that players couldn't manage being more than one character. So that's my thoughts. Jared, what about you?
I like it in games, especially if it's a game that has high attrition. We've done it. I've been doing it since I've been either as a GM or as a player, been doing it since about like 80, 81. So I've seen it show up a lot. We've done it in games where players only need only have a few players, which would need more characters. If the character has an entourage, that sort of thing. The 4 that come to mind for me, when we play the chainmail game, the original pre-D&D chainmail game, and our GM ran it as a role-playing game, each of us had our knight, our squire, and our entourage. And depending on what was going on in the situation, we played our knights, our squires, or our entourage. We didn't mix and match them back then. But then when Battletech came out, and we started playing Battletech, original pre-clan, just after Battle Droids Battletech, we had a big group of people, but everybody created their character and their tech. And you had some scenarios that involved you playing your character, some that involved playing your tech. Sometimes you played both of them at the same time. Sometimes we got out of our mechs and got into things. At one point, we even spent money to hire a mercenary group because we were all really bad if we had to get out of our mechs and do something. Because Battletech's a game that you kind of put all your points into the one thing you're good at. And so I ended up spending a lot of my credits. Instead of upgrading my mech, I bought a mercenary team. And there was one time that the players got out of our mechs and everybody else played their characters, and I played the entire mercenary team. We did this in Traveler, where we all rolled characters that had nobility, and so there were only 3 players. So we had the Kakri guy just played all of his Kakri, because in Traveler, if you play a Kakri, you're playing a herd of herd animals. So he played all 47 of his characters, or however many you get for that. The Jodani, who are the psychics, played the noble and his attendant, and I played an Aslan noble male and the female attendant who actually had all the intelligence skills, because in Traveler, the male characters really don't understand anything except shooting stuff. and it makes for fun characters. And lastly, and I think Bob can talk about this a little bit too, a lot of the Forge in the Dark games, like Scum and Villainy, and especially Band of Blades, play towards troop play, where you create your main characters, and then you either rotate through them, like in Scum and Villainy. You can have a situation where in your downtime, your character gets taken out for an entire story arc, where you have to spend time away recovering from your downtime, and so you pick up one of the other characters in the group and play them. So sometimes Bob will play the medic, sometimes I'll play the medic, and so on. And in games like Band of Blades, you build your heroes, and then you build 6 5-man squads that are involved in the missions. And on any given adventure, you take 2 or 3 of the main characters, and everybody else is playing that 5-man squad. And sometimes you rotate out, sometimes you play several of them at once. Well, you start out with a 5-man squad. It's Band of Blades, so you don't generally end with a 5-man squad, unfortunately. But what we found out playing that game was that you got really attached. And we got to the point where I think when Chris was running Band of Blades, I think we got 5 of the 6 squads detailed out enough. And it was heartbreaking when one of them died, especially because you were playing them that mission. But we got to the point where, basically we had all played 6 or 7 characters and loved them all. I think you don't have to force people to do it. Generally, there were, even in games like Band of Blades, there were 1 or 2 players that really liked playing their main characters, and others that liked playing the multiples. But I've never really had a problem with letting players in a group where they work together playing more than one character. If you have a PvP game, I think that's the one stumbling block with playing troop style, that you can have people kind of either ganging up on or playing multiple characters in a way that can be troublesome. But if you've got a group of players, like all the games that we play, where the players all get along, even if the characters don't, you can have a great time with troop play, and it gives people a chance to role play different aspects in that game. You get a chance to play the cynical character and the upbeat character and the combat character and the character that's all about tech and the hopeless romantic all at the same time, and do that kind of stuff. So I think that's one of the advantages of troop play. So, Bob?
Yeah, pretty much everything that Jerry just said, I agree with. The Blades in the Dark, the Forged in the Dark games are definitely constructed so that at some point somebody's going to be playing a different character than what they started, and then probably likely go back to the other character at some point. Another thing that we did, which I don't remember now if Jerry mentioned off the top of my head, but we had a couple of instances where, like, say I played a particular character in one session, and then like maybe 2-3 sessions down the road I played a different character. Somebody else played the character that I played earlier, so they kind of migrated around a little bit. But Band of Blades has definitely got that extra added element where you're going out on military missions, and you have to decide who you're going to take this time. Well, this time we don't need the sniper, and we don't need the boom boom guy. We need the bunch of stealthy people, and maybe like a couple of grunts just in case, whatever. So you bounce around characters a lot. But as Jerry said, you don't necessarily have to have everybody play a different character every single session. If somebody's like particularly fond of their character and they fit for that mission, fine, go to town. Sorry, my nose is itching for some reason. I don't know why. But yeah, they're particularly structured very well for troop play. Another thing that I think for sitting down at your table and deciding that you're going to go troop play is if you've got a game that has a lot of different character roles, and the players say, for example, they can't decide, I really don't know which one I want to play. I really like both of these or whatever. Or there's like a larger than normal, like typically you're going to have, I don't know, like maybe just off the cuff, like a dozen character archetypes, maybe like 8 to 10 to 12, depending on the game. But if you've got like a dozen and you got 4 people and they're all like, man, I really like all of these, make a bunch of characters, go to town, try them all out. It's an interesting way to play a game, And if you've never done it before, I highly recommend that you do it at least once just to get a feel for it, because it's fun to stretch your character characterization muscles. I'm trying to think of a way to put that, but like, I'm playing the doctor this week. Next week I'm going to play the driver, like whatever. It lets you flex those role-playing muscles, and try something different, and you can always go back to the other one. So I think true play is a really cool idea that I'm glad is more prominent now in more games, so that people can try it out. And again, try it if you haven't done it, because I think it's a good time.
I have one thing to add to true play that I forgot to mention. I was going to put in there that I think that Band of Blades handled well. That if you're going to have a game where players rotate from character to character, where they might not be playing the same character every week, one of the things that the Forged in the Dark games do a good job with is making sure that characters that aren't there still gain some level of experience. Because if you have one person who's playing the same character every week and somebody else who's playing this character this week and this character another week, they're going to fall behind on skills and stuff. And in some games, that drop can be a major thing. So if you're using a game that uses experience points, make sure that you have milestone experience points, or have something in place that the characters that aren't there either advance at the same degree, or advance where everybody else gets 3 experience points, people that aren't there get 2 or something on that line. But make sure that they stay in that same genre, because it's no fun if you're in a game where there is a great disparity. Like, take a game like Dungeons and Dragons that we're all familiar with. If you miss 3 adventures with your character and the rest of the party's level 6 and you're level 3, that's a big disparity in the game. So I would say that just if you decide to do this, and I think you should, it's a lot of fun, just make sure you include some metric in the game to make sure that the characters that aren't there advance at the same level, so that they all get to stay in the same basic power grouping. Would you guys agree with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it works best when you've got games that have slower character improvement. I mean, if you're having, like if you're in a troop style Pathfinder and everyone levels up, and you got to level up like 4 characters, without software assistance, like, could be a lot. Or just play fighters. Like, that's just, keep it simple. Make at least one of them a fighter. Then you'll have no work to do, because there's nothing more boring than a Pathfinder fighter.
And honestly,
says the guy who loves fighters.
Yeah. If you
have you ever played a Pathfinder fighter?
I have. Have you ever played an Iron Heroes fighter?
I've never played Iron Heroes.
Yeah.
But a Pathfinder fighter is not the most boring thing in the world.
It's not that exciting.
No. It's not as
there's no 10 levels. There's no
like
10 levels of cleave in Pathfinder.
But to go back to the whole advancement disparity thing, if to me it's always been like, the fighter didn't come with us on the last adventure because the player was out of town and couldn't come, so the fighter was sitting at home. The fighter wasn't just sitting in the inn throwing back beers and flirting with the waitress. The fighter was doing something, right? Like, he wasn't like, my player wasn't here, so my character just sat on his ass and did nothing. No, he was out doing something.
Right.
So he was still gaining experience. Maybe he didn't gain as much as everybody else did. Maybe he did, if you just say everybody levels up at the same rate without experience. It's just milestone leveling. Whatever. But I always thought, like, that's stupid to think that that character, just because the player wasn't there, that the character was sitting with their thumb in their butt going, what am I doing? Nothing. Like, no, they're out there doing something. So
it's just something you should address at session 0 to
Yeah.
make sure everybody understands how it's going to work. Yep. Good point.
Yeah.
All
All
right. Good. I think we've covered that.
Yep.
All right.
Question 2.
That's you, Phil.
Yep. Question 2. Sorry, I was watching the chat room. All right. Question 2. Carl asked, any advice dealing with writer's block during prep? No, that's a legit
All right.
problem.
Oh yeah.
Yep. I was taught a little while ago, and nowhere near soon enough when I was writing, that I was taught just start writing where you want to go. If you don't have the start of your story, but you know a scene that you want to write, right there. If you have an adventure that you want to put together, start writing wherever you are. If you're writing a game system and you know the stuff that you want to put into it, start with that chapter. You can always go back and edit things. It's even easier today when we all have computers. Back in the day when we all had to do it, by hand in a notebook, or on a typewriter, or if you're old like Bob, on chalkboards, whatever.
Tablet, clay tablet.
Clay tablets. There you go. Papyrus. But
Hammering
seriously,
a stone with a chisel.
there you go.
You leave my abacus
but
out
seriously,
of this.
But so seriously, like when we started working on one of the games 2 years ago, I knew what I wanted to do for rules, and I knew what I wanted to do for character creation, but I didn't have the background all figured out yet. So I just did the stuff I had, and as I went, I would go back and edit a paragraph here, edit a paragraph there, and that's how I did it. Because if I just sat down to start with chapter 1, page 1, that didn't work for me. So that's what I did. I just start with what you have and go back and put the rest of the stuff in later. If you're inspired to write something, you're sitting down to write because you had an idea in mind of some sort. Even if it wasn't a complete idea, start where you are. That's what I'd say.
Absolutely.
Cool.
So, depending on where you are, what you're having trouble with while you're doing your writing, break out the tools. That's my thing. Like, if you're having trouble with like an NPC, backstory cards, short order heroes. Yep. You're like trying to figure out what to do about the plot. Rory story cubes. There are a ton of decks and dice and other utilities that can give you that little jolt to get you over the hump. There are dungeon geomorph dice where it's like I'm not sure what to do with this dungeon. Like, roll a bunch of geomorph dice and be like, oh, so we've got a cavern here that leads to a room down a set of stairs. Like, there's decks of cards that do that. So there are so many different tools, and a lot of them are available as PDFs. And if you can't afford the full hard copy versions of them, and you can just kind of like do random random selection like that. But there are so many tools out there. Depending on what you're stuck for, there's probably a tool out there that will give you that little burst of inspiration that'll be like, oh, wait a minute, yes, that'll work. That's my tip.
Yeah, that's good. It's good. I have like a box of that. I have like a box of that junk in my GMing cart. So you know what? I've I don't know. I've written some stuff. So over the years, like I've run into writer's block in all sorts of places. I think the most important thing about writer's block is like it puts too much value in the it puts too much emphasis. I shouldn't say value. It puts too much emphasis on your initial draft, where revisions are always so much better. So like if you're blocked on a thing, like just start writing anything, right?
Yep.
Like if you can't quite figure out how to lead into the set piece encounter that you want to have, like just jam in some stuff. It doesn't have to be good. You guys know from looking at the notes, I also use a technique where when I know that I should put something more down, but I don't know what it is, I just write the word stuff in capital letters as a reminder, like to just, I'll need to put some stuff here later. And the reason I say this is like emotionally, writer's block is like a punch to the gut. And the problem is it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy psychologically, right? So like if you hit the keyboard and you're like, oh, I got nothing. And then like you go turn on and play video games. While you've treated yourself in the moment, in the back of your head, you're going to be like, oh, I didn't write that thing. Like I didn't prep the session and now I've got less days to prep it. And this is, it's going to be worse and worse and worse. Right. And then if you go to hit the keyboard again the next day and you're feeling bad that you didn't hit it the day before and you don't break through and start writing, now it's like it's a domino effect, right? Like it'll just begin to snowball and it'll just get worse and worse till you're like, you're not running the game anymore. Right. So part of the thing about writing is that you should just write even when it's bad. And when you don't know when you don't know the details for something, you can just put in your notes in your first pass. You can be like, some encounter happens here that leads to a secret door, right? Just write that and then like keep going.
Yep.
Now, as long as you have managed your time and you're not trying to write your session the night before the session or the day of the session and you hit writer's block, this is also a thing to take into account. If you started your session prep like a week earlier, you can absorb a little writer's block, right? Like I'm saying, don't get up from the keyboard, but you can leave yourself that note of some encounter goes here and write the stuff, like Jerry said, write the stuff in that first pass. You will get up from the table going, all right, look, it's not perfect, but I got some stuff done. I can hit this tomorrow. And often, once you kind of know what the pieces are that are missing and you've gotten the stuff that you knew out of your head, your brain will almost always solve that problem later when you least expect it, right? Yeah. So you get down all the stuff, the set piece encounter, you write yourself a note, got to write this, intro thing here. I don't know what to do yet. How do the players find out about this, whatever? And then like you go off and do some stuff. One, you're feeling better, your creativity's up. And two, when you least expect it, your brain will be like, oh, here's the solution to your problem. And that's it. And then you just come back and you start writing again. So I very much encourage. I know writer's block sucks and I know it feels terrible, but take it from a person who many times has been incredibly uninspired and sat down and just started pounding out words. It's not the initial draft that counts. It's what you do in revisions, and you should just be accounting for that when you're prepping your games as well. Like just get some junk down, come back and fix it up in revisions.
I don't know of any writer who's ever happy with the first draft of anything they do.
I don't put any stock in my first draft. I just vomit stuff onto a page and then I step away from it for a day. Like I don't want to see it. Like the day I've written it, I don't even want to see it. Like that day, it's dead to me. Maybe the next day at the earliest, I'll come back and take a look. And then I don't beat myself up for it. Like I don't be like, oh, what garbage, Phil. Like, nope, this is the process. Like these words are bad. Let's get to work and make them better. Right? Like it's really in the revision. You should just vomit as much as you can. Vomit words onto a page, vomit ideas, half-formed, ill-formed, doesn't matter. Just get it up there and then give yourself the time to do the edits when you're not under pressure. You'll make much better stuff.
Yep.
Cool.
Okay. All right. Question 3. Jim's Like Games asked, do you eat before a game or during? Like, how does a meal disrupt play? How does a meal enhance it? How does the ritual of food and when it happens affect the gameplay itself?
Yeah, that's a good question. Personally, I prefer to have full meals if you're going to have them before the game. Phil will obviously talk about some of the there's going to be a lot of overlap on this. But
sure, because we game together constantly.
Yes.
I prefer full meals beforehand. At least one of our games, we snack a lot during the game. Our NBA group, that group for some reason tends to snack a lot.
Yeah.
And
there's a reason for that. Go ahead.
Anytime you've got food involved, sorry about that. Anytime you've got food involved during a game, it will cause some delays. It's just going to be a matter of how disciplined everybody is about. Sorry. All of a sudden.
You want me to jump in?
Please.
Okay. So yeah, like Bob said, like we mostly eat beforehand. Some of this has to do with like play space. If you have the space to eat meals separate from your game, like you can certainly do that, right? You can certainly go to the dining room table, eat as a group, or wherever you eat, outside, whatever, and then come inside, go to your gaming table and play. I don't have that space. My gaming table is almost always where we eat, so I like to just do one activity, that activity being eating, and then clean the table, put everybody's game stuff out, and game. If we did it because of that one table, if we did it mid game, we'd have to stop, take everything off the table, put the meal onto the table, eat, and then resume, like clear it, clean it, resume. Yep. It's a lot. So it's not my favorite. Also, and maybe this is just my group, but I suspect it's some of your groups as well. The process of ordering food, if you're not making it, can be excruciating. So it can be slow, and it it could be the app is slow. People don't know what they want to eat yet. Like I try to handle some of that, like from a scheduling perspective, like handle some of that, like during the week, like, hey, we're playing on Sunday. Where do people want to eat? Kind of thing. Yep. We've done
a few avoid games. Analysis paralysis.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. We've done a few games, Bob, where we've done some like Amber LARP like things where we've eaten during the game, and it was cool, like to be able to fold that in. But Amber is not a game that requires like books, dice, or anything else, so it was very easy to kind of blend those two activities. And then I would say, lastly, I'll say just the last part of this is for our group, that dinner time is socialization time. Ideally, not that this is true all the time, ideally the purpose of that socialization time is to get out all the things we want to say to each other, socializing wise, jokes, etc., before we start playing. It's almost never really the case, but it is nice to actually like hang out with everyone, socialize, catch up on what's going on in everybody's week, 2 weeks, whatever, share a meal, and then let's play.
Yeah.
That's been mostly how we've done it. Bob, do you want to jump back in?
I mean, you pretty much covered everything else that I was gonna go into. So
I was buying you time for the
I don't know what happened.
For the lozenge,
it's just tickling my throat, and I just couldn't do it.
I heard the lozenge wrapper, and I was like, oh, better jump in.
Yeah.
All right, if you're good, then Jerry.
For me, I think that, like you said, meals should be done before the game starts when possible, or at the very, very beginning. But I used to have some of the games that I had here at my house. We had people coming from further away. Some of them were coming right from work. So sometimes somebody comes in and arrives, and if they haven't eaten yet and they're going to eat, I expect come in, sit down, say hi, order your food, so that we are eating within the first 20 minutes of the game and move on from there. For the exact same reasons you guys have all mentioned. If we're going to have snacks, I want them to be manageable. I don't want, powdered cheese puffs, no chicken wings, nothing that's going to be slimy or sticky or oily on the table. Preferably nothing with dips. We've had some of those in the past. It's going to depend on your gaming group, of course. Like you said, it's going to depend a little bit on the space you're in. Snacks are also going to make a difference based on the pacing of the game you're in. If you've got a game where people sometimes, by the nature of the game, are sitting watching somebody else do something, sometimes they snack for the same reason that gamers stack dice and take notes and so on. It's something to do, but if you're going to do that, make sure the snacks are there, and as also avoid snacks that are loud. Additional, if you're not the one in the scene, having somebody in the background crunching and making noise doesn't help. But it can also be, there's something to be said for the social aspect. If somebody brings brownies, or something that they made at home, and they're like, oh, these are homemade, and you pass them around. That can be, fun. But we live in Buffalo, and there's a place here that's a roast beef place called Anderson's that also makes custard, and we have had ice cream delivered to the house mid-game just for the hell of it. And so we stop and take a 5-minute bio break, and everybody eats their ice cream. But that's a planned thing. We don't try to just have like everybody's trying to eat pizza in the middle of the game and that sort of thing. It just tends to cause trouble for all the reasons you mentioned before.
I know, back in our youth,
Mhm.
I know back in our youth when Bob and I lived next to the pizza place, and gaming was more like a 6 to 7 hour event.
Yeah. Yep.
We would totally take dinner breaks in the middle. I guess I should qualify this by saying how we play now, right? Like,
yeah,
we normally play on a Sunday evening, and we typically play 3 to 4 hours sessions. We're not like, we used to play like back in the 90s when we lived in the same duplex. We used to play like at noon and play well into the evening. And so we would just like taking a break to stop and have dinner was kind of like a welcomed, kind of a welcome disruption. And when Bob and I were living together, like we could eat in one apartment and play in the other one, or we were playing a lot of games that didn't really require tables. We were playing like sitting around the living room. So putting everything back in your bag for a few minutes while, we put out pizza or subs or something was entirely possible. I'm trying to remember. There was a time in the 90s where we hardly ever played at a table. And it wasn't until like we started playing third edition that we like went back to sitting at a table. Like we used to sit in the living room.
We had a run of games where we were sitting on couches and chairs around a coffee table. Occasionally we took our stuff on the road. We had a couple of vampire sessions in Spot Coffee, stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. We didn't really like, it wasn't until third edition, until we got like all battle mappy and shit that we like settled into like playing at a table on a routine basis. Now we play at a table all the time. And I'm fine with it. It's not like it's not like I miss it, but like you said, Jerry, like I'm, like one of the things I'm like a stickler about is I don't actually like beverages and snacks on the table. Like when we're playing, I like them on side tables, right? Yeah. Like at my old place, I had side tables. At my new place, I have like side tables. Like I like everything on side tables. So if something spills, it's not like in the middle, like on the, in the game. And Bob did the same thing when we were at his place playing board games. On his very nice table, he had sideboards. He had like like little side tables set aside so that, whatever drinks and snacks we had sat on those, and we just had the game on the table. So, and that worked out really well.
I have the advantage that I have a very big game table in my basement, and I have a bar right behind it where we keep most of the actual snacks and drinks stored. And then same thing, we have little folding tables you can set up next to them, behind them, and so on for that reason. Because, you don't want lots of stuff on the table. I get frustrated enough when somebody's got 12 books on the table when they only need one kind of thing if they're not the GM.
I'm
I used to have a player that used to bring every book they need, every book for the game to the table. I'm like, we don't need all those books. Just just the thing you need.
Just that's when you encourage them just to put them in a bag at the bottom of the table. If we need it, pull it out.
Yep.
Like, if you want to be prepared, it's right there. Also, I've seen your game room. I can't imagine that somebody has a book for a game that you don't already have. Like,
oh, good God, lots of them. I don't. That's why I stopped collecting Pathfinder, because there were too many books.
Too many books.
But no,
and
I will have my half-order fighter smack you for that one, bud.
I will
fight me on that.
I will take the DCC fighter over the Pathfinder fighter. I like the what you call it.
See, I think you're there's a difference between not as interesting as game X and a boring fighter, because you can make a lot of interesting fighters in a game like Pathfinder, even D&D 3.5.
I'm with you. It's just that
I think the idea of saying that fighters are boring is playing into that stereotype that's out there about.
Well, first of all, I almost only play fighters, right? Okay. So my usual frustration is I don't think fighters get to do enough cool things in games compared to other character classes. But that is neither here nor there. We're still on the topic of food, and I want to just kind of wrap that up. I had a final thought on this. I guess the final thought on this is I am actually a big fan of having food before and during a game, because I don't want anyone hangry. I don't want anyone spacey or whatever because they haven't eaten when we sit and play. Right? I want everyone fed. I want everybody fueled up. I have no problem with snacks, on the sides of the table, whatever. Like, eat. We used to have some, like, our NBA game has some really, like, has had some really sugary snack kind of thing. I think our worst was our D&D 4E game, when we used to get those, what were those stupid Oreos called? The Cakesters.
Oh dear.
And we used to pass out 2 packs of Cakesters before the game started, and we'd wait till we kicked something's ass, like in an encounter, and then we'd break out our Cakesters as a celebration.
Yep, that was like our victory cigar.
I'm not this size by accident, folks. Like, just didn't sneak up on me one morning.
Whatever happened to Cakesters? Did they just go away?
I think the FDA banned them or something.
That's bull.
I don't know. Whatever happened.
Yeah. I think one thing is, if you're going to have a snack area, I think you make sure that the player sitting next to it is aware of the fact that part of their role in the game, if you're going to sit next to the snack area, is giving snacks to other people so that they don't have to constantly disrupt the game. So if somebody wants, like, if you're sitting next to the table that has, the chips and the drinks and all that, just be aware of the fact, like, somebody's getting low on their chips. He wants more chips here, hand them over. That way you're not disrupting the game. There's somebody get up, climb over 6 people, go grab something back and forth, that sort of thing. Makes a difference. And if you're going to get snacks during the game, do it at a point where there's a break in the game. The GM's about to, all right, okay, now let me look up this thing here. Okay, great, I'm going to go grab a snack real quick. So if you're going to be the snacker, don't disrupt the game to do it.
All right,
Bob, I literally typed in whatever happened to Oreo, and Google was like Cakesters. And so I'm going to tell you that while no one knows why Cakesters were taken off the market, they're coming back in 2022.
Yes.
The Oreo Cakester is coming back, and apparently the Nutter Butter Cakester is coming as well. And if you haven't already made the jump of just separating those two and sticking them together to make the chocolate peanut butter Cakester, but yes, they are. They're coming back, baby. And if you're asking what the hell is a Cakester, I will explain very quickly. The Oreo Cakester was 2 chocolate cakes with Oreo filling in the middle. It was like a whoopie pie kind of thing. Yep. And they were big. Like, they weren't Oreo size, they were bigger. They were like brownie size.
It was like cutting the bottom off of a Hostess cupcake, sticking 2 of them together with cream filling between them.
Yeah, it's bad. They were delicious. They were super sugary.
Sugar bombs.
I definitely loved them when we were playing 4E. Yeah. And my dumbass will probably buy a box when they show back up in the store. At least for nostalgia, I will bring a box of Cakesters to a game and toss them around. Awesome. But good Lord, the Cakester. But yeah, we actually made a little ritual of that in our 4E game. We'd pass them out like, I think we took the ritual from Independence Day, the passing out of the cigars. It's your victory dance is okay. Is what they said. So we would pass out our Cakesters and we'd all have them sitting in front of us till we fought some like big encounter and beat it. And then we'd all break out our Cakesters in celebration. Oh, yeah. Happy. Huh. Okay, cool. We should probably move along. We're going to take a break and we're going to check in with the chat room. But in order to get to the chat room, we must first get through Bob, who is going to shill another show on the network for us. What show is it, Bob? It's
time to pump somebody else's show up. And that show is Mastering Dungeons. I got to say, I like this name way better than Down with D&D.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Down with D&D always sound like it was a slam.
Yeah.
You know? Like, down with D&D, boo!
That's not how it went. It was It was.
No, I know it
Are
was
you-
based on, it was a riff off the song, but when you just hear it out of context, it sounded like it was a slam.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, if you
Mastering
did-
Dungeons
if
sounds
you-
a lot better.
Yeah, if you didn't know that there was that the song was associated with it, if you just saw Down with D&D as a podcast, it did sometimes come across as, putting down D&D, which not something we want to do.
I disagree, but that's not the point. Mastering Dungeons is a brilliant name.
It is, and
a snappy
show,
logo.
Yes,
snappy
very
logo
snappy
as well.
Very snappy.
Yes.
Yes. In this wonderful podcast, RPG veterans and game designers Teos Abadaya and Sean Merwin look at the game and the hobby of D&D from a variety of viewpoints, reporting the news, understanding the business, reviewing the products, and illuminating the design. Whether you're a fan, a player, a DM, or a designer, Sean and Teos cover topics of interest to you. Give it a listen.
There we go.
All right. So,
times.
chat room. So, yeah, back when we were talking about troop play, Andy attempted to do to DM a troop play D&D game using a pre-written adventure that didn't go well. And part of the reason for that was the game wasn't written for people to miss sessions. So when you're bouncing to different people, it can throw things off. That's certainly
totally.
One of the things that the Forged in the Dark games do to try and mitigate that issue is they're generally mission based, and more often than not, your mission's going to take one session. So if somebody's there for it, they're there for it, and then the next session, it's downtime, whatever, blah blah blah, depending on at least the way when we ran it. It worked that way for us. I am so sorry. I have no idea what's going on with my throat right now.
We're losing Bob. So, yeah. All right. What else we got going on in the chat room?
Apparently send us surprise we can eat ice cream in 5 minutes. Well, not that we necessarily ate the ice cream in 5 minutes. We had 5 minutes to kind of get the ice cream down to a manageable situation. You licked the cone down to where it was no longer dripping.
You ate the cones delivered?
We had cones delivered. We had one of the people that had cones delivered.
Wow.
They deliver cones?
They will deliver anything. And you have to remember also, I live like 3/4 of a mile from this place.
No, I know where you live.
So it's wonderful. It actually happened because I actually, as the GM, I arrived at the house like 3 minutes before everybody got there, so I did not have dinner. Went downstairs, set up the table, vacuumed the floor, and they came in. We sat down. I'm like, I need to eat something, so I just went on and ordered. Back when Skip the Dishes still existed, I ordered just a roast beef sandwich, a baked potato, and I'm like, what the hell? I'm going to order an ice cream sundae. And it was like, they have ice cream, and we ordered ice cream, and that became a thing that somebody always wanted to get the cone for some reason, probably just to be difficult. But
the Sunday sounds completely sane to me, right?
Yes,
like the Sunday sounds like, as a person who does not like dripping food and things like as a person with anxiety, a cone is nothing but taunting my anxiety.
Yes. Most of the time I get a cone, I ask them to just put it in the little cup for me, and I'll just break the cone up.
That's why my favorite thing about Jenny's ice cream in Ohio was you could get your ice cream in a dish, and then they put the sugar cone wedge into the dish so that you could have all the taste of a delicious cone and none of the anxiety.
Yep. I think I also had a player who just enjoyed doing things differently to be different, and then everybody else was ordering just, which is fine. I mean, it was their cone; they can do whatever they want with it.
Sure.
But I'm not against ice cream during a game as long as it's kept clean and orderly. So
I was trying to explain to Senda the anxiety of opening a McRib and trying to get it out of the box. I wasn't eating one for the record, but I was going through the drive-thru and I mentioned the McRib, and Senda was like, "What's that?" And I was like, "Well, there's a story." So I had to tell the story, but then you could never get the McRib out of the box without also bathing in the barbecue sauce.
I still think that abomination should be taken out and shot into space.
I mean, it's frequently taken out. Like it's
Yeah.
not an everyday thing at McDonald's.
No.
I haven't had
people
one
like it.
I haven't had one in forever.
I had one once, and I was like, why bother trying to make it look like it's actual ribs when it's just formed pressed meat product?
I mean, but that's chicken nuggets.
Yeah. I mean, because
to
that's
be honest,
hamburgers.
that's hamburger.
That's Arby's. That's everything at Arby's.
I mean, form pressed meat is kind of their thing. Like, there's very few things that aren't form pressed. Like the egg in the Egg McMuffin is literally the only thing I think that isn't like, parts of something, pressed into something.
Yeah.
The Egg McMuffin is simple. It's an egg. It's a piece of Canadian bacon, which is always round.
It's ham, isn't it, Chef?
It's ham, isn't it, Chef? And it's a friggin' English muffin. There's nothing formed in.
It's the purest. Fake. It's the purest of all of them.
That's why I get it as my breakfast thing from McDonald's. If I have to get a McDonald's breakfast,
I have seen the garbage you eat for breakfast.
Listen, do not throw stones.
Hey man, all I'm gonna say is Wendy's has a chicken sandwich, and that's all I care about. I can get regular. It is a pet peeve of mine that for a while McDonald's had breakfast all day, but you couldn't get a freaking hamburger at 8 o'clock in the morning, which is all I really wanted. Because I don't want eggs for breakfast.
Jerry's the only person who's like voting for lunch at 8 a.m.
I'm voting for eggs in the morning. Make
I know.
Me a little tumbling all day. I like them at night, and so I don't like eggs in the morning. But I love like chicken sandwiches, hamburgers, steak, pizza, whatever in the morning for breakfast. That's great. So.
All right.
Andy Fox is terrified of the McRib. I don't think that's an irrational fear.
No,
I think
it's not an irrational fear.
I think the McRib is. I think the press and the internet makes the McRib more of a, makes it out to be more popular than I think it really is. I'm not buying the hype on the McRib. All right.
Now that we've delved into McRib territory, I think we should jump back into the next question.
All right.
So question 4, Todd asked, how would you introduce a new player, as in never played an RPG before, to an existing group in the middle of an existing campaign? It's a lot of qualifiers.
So this is right. So this is not great. I understand the necessity of it, but this is fraught with peril. Here's the thing. You got a whole lot of things going on here, right? You've got a player who's never played an RPG before, who has to learn how to play an RPG, right? Specifically the one that you're in the middle of a campaign in. They also then have to learn all of the campaign lore, and they're going to disrupt the group. Like we talked about this in the previous, I think we talked about this on Pandas recently. They're going to disrupt the dynamic of that group when they arrive, right? Because it's change. It's inevitable. Even if everybody likes the person, still going to disrupt the ongoing campaign. So my first answer is, do you really need to do this? Okay. Assuming that the answer to that is yes, here's the best way I think you can handle it. At least in my opinion. I shouldn't say best way. This is how I would handle it. First of all, pause your campaign and go play a one-shot with this player. Get the intro to role-playing part out, right? Have play a one-shot of the game you're playing. Play some Swords Without Master. Whatever. Play something to get the role-playing part down. Like, this is a character sheet. These are like funny dice. This is you, like that kind of thing. Just do that. One, before you insert them into your campaign, make sure they really like doing this, right? Like maybe they're going to play that evening with you and are like, I don't know about this like role-playing thing. That kind of thing. So get a one-shot in for starters. Mm-hmm. Then if you're going to drop them in the middle of an existing campaign, find a way to do it where the character is somebody who doesn't know about the world. It's going to be hard enough on the player. The player is going to be juggling a lot of stuff. They're going to be trying to like learn how to role play. They're going to be sorting out what the dice are. They're going to be trying to catch up on the rules. What's this? What's that? How do I do this? if on top of that they have to know the like all the history of your ongoing campaign, it's a lot for them. So if they're like, use the stranger in a strange land trope, right? Like they were a prisoner in a dungeon, like, you know, from a dragon all their lives or whatever. And they've only come out into the world. And the reason you do this is because the character doesn't know stuff. The player doesn't know stuff. And then the players can kind of show the character the world. Like instead of being like, oh yes, you've lived in this world your whole life. Why would you even address, you know, the mayor of the town like that? Like everybody knows you, you know, you call them this. It'll be way easier if this new player is a stranger in a strange land, can make those faux pas and have everybody like, no, that's not how we address the mayor. Like you say their title, like, sorry, mayor, like we just found him in a dungeon, like, you know, fell through a dimensional portal, not from here kind of thing, right? It'll help, right? And then you can like slowly bring them, you can like slowly, the players will have a reason to bring them into the fold. I think that's the least stressful way to do it, is to basically like pass ownership of teaching the player the campaign world through the players. So yeah, Andy Fox is saying amnesia. Like, sure, amnesia makes you like, can also make you the stranger in a strange land. You could be from a faraway land, prisoner of a dragon. You were in a mirror of life trapping that recently got broken. You're from like a whole other age, whatever. You know, we're creative people. Like, you'll figure out how you'll get around to that. But I think if you do that, you've given the player the best chance, because you've relieved from them the pressure of having to know your made up world and all the made up shit that you and everyone else did before they joined. And then all they have to focus on is being their character, figuring out these rules, and which one of those is the D12. It should be obvious. It's the coolest die. Anyway. Anyway, that those are my tips. Jerry, what do you got?
I would say have a game that you do similar to what Phil's talked about that helps to focus on that character and how the game works. If you're bringing them into an existing campaign and everybody's already got a couple of advances in their character under their belt, maybe play a shot with that character a couple levels beyond and do something with that focuses on that character. Maybe how the players all met. That way they can get all that out of the way before the actual adventure starts. So that when that character shows up again, it's like, oh, look, Bob's back. Remember that adventure we had with them where we, rescued the space prince from the, evil octopus people or something? And, but do something like that and have it something that focuses on that character and what they do. If they're going to play the rogue, give them some rogue stuff to do. If the player is just playing because they really like the idea of, flying starships, then give them a starship to fly. If they're excited about, they've always wanted to play an elf, well, then put them in elven cities so they get a chance to, whatever they're excited about, give them that and then build the role playing around it. Find what it is that they want to do and build that, and tell your players this is what we're going to do. If you've got good players, they'll just jump into that, and they'll focus on that, and they can have fun with all the things that happen and how they know each other, and it'll give them a chance to just do their thing without having to know that much about the game. And again, you can use your Strangers in a Strange Land thing as well. But I think giving them an adventure that focuses on what they can do means that when you get back to the main adventure, and now you can spend another 10 points to build your character, or however that goes, or level yourself up 3 times, whatever. They have an idea what they should be building because they've gotten a chance to play the character and see what they like and don't like and what they can build up to. So when they get back into the campaign, they're all set to go. That's what I would look at.
Cool. Yeah, I just want to reiterate one thing that Phil already said. So, like, if at all possible, you want to start them out in a completely different session with some kind of game that'll be like, this is how you role play kind of a thing. Like, let's put your toes in the water before we jump into the pool completely. Like, if, somebody's SO significant other drops them off at the game for game night and they're like, I've always been curious about this whole role-playing thing. Maybe I can play with you guys sometime. Like, what you don't want to do if you can avoid it is be like, let's just throw you into the pool right now for tonight's session. Because it's going to be way harder to just manage all of that for all the reasons Phil already mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would also avoid the one of like, hey, just watch us play, because you're like, you can kind of like it's better if you do it than just watch people do it, right?
Maybe a little bit of value in watching how the table works, but not for like a whole session. Like
No.
And whatever you do, like don't spend a session vomiting campaign information onto the player.
Yes.
I'm on like a real vomit streak tonight, but I think you get what I'm saying, right? Like, don't be like, hey, tonight we're going to explain to you everything that ever happened in the game we played. Like, so that you're up to speed.
Yeah.
Like,
unless
and if you
the kind of person that's into like the super deep world building from other fantasy things, like, oh, they're a Game of Thrones fan and they loved Game of Thrones, and it's like, oh, really? Tell me about this fantasy world that you're playing in. Like, that might actually work. But generally, that is fair. You don't want to just dump all of that. That info dump eyes are gonna glaze over.
Yeah, I mean, there's a thing about playing role-playing games, especially when you're new to them, because many of us will forget because we're old. There's sometimes a nervousness about putting yourself out there and playing pretend, and all of those things. And if you're juggling that nervousness plus trying to like remember this fictitious history, right? Yeah. At the same time, it's a lot to ask somebody. Like, so yeah, like, I don't know, keep it simple. If you have to tell them stuff about the world, keep it super light, and don't be afraid to sidebar during a game and be like, oh, by the way, right? Like, here's a thing that happened in like if somebody brings up an inside joke, pause for a second and be like, oh, the reason that's funny is because when they went to, the kobolds the first time, the kobolds ripped them off and took all their gear, right? Like that kind, like you can do those things, like break the fourth wall for a second, explain those things, but don't explain it all at once, right? Like, explain it when it becomes necessary.
Digestible chunks are always easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You want them to come back, right? Like, you want this to be the most positive experience. Once they're excited, they'll soak up a bunch more of it like a sponge, right? You'll know when it's time to turn the fire hose on of information, when they're like super excited after their first or second game and are like, you got to tell me more about this world. Like, like what else goes on in this world, and be like, cool. Then you put your 3-inch ring, your 3-inch binder out on the table and are like, allow me to begin, right? Like that kind of thing. Yeah. Cool.
All
right. Question 5. Andrew asked, what concepts, practices, or quote game tech have you stolen to slap into other games? I like this question a lot, by the way. All right, Jerry.
Oh my God.
Jerry, what have you stolen?
Bennies or hero points, fate points, whatever you like. Something that the players can get to interact with the game a little bit. So whether or not it is a reroll or a token they can use to add a +1 or whatever. I love that, especially the heist mechanic bennies. Second thing I like is a lot of games these days have abstract treasure and gear, where instead of giving you get 75 gold pieces. It's like, you get 2 loot points and you get 2 gear points. Later on in the game when you looted something. We need to have another 50 feet of rope. Well, I remember when we killed those goblins, I got a gear point. I must have pulled some rope off of them or whatever. It makes it easier to keep from having players just constantly write down everything and try to, I'm looking to see if the Wookiee has any gold teeth so we can pull them out to make some money too or whatever. It just gives them something simple. Plus, it allows them to be more abstract with what they've got. And, you can say okay, you need rope, sure. They had rope. Just spend a gear point and you've got it. And I think it just makes the game flow quicker. I liked table sourcing encounters and NPCs a lot, especially since when I run games, a lot of times I'll let the players kind of go off the beaten path and play in different areas. So they're going to walk into a tavern. Yeah, sure. You see that the bartender is there. Our famous the leading questions. why doesn't the bartender like you kind of thing. Or, you see a couple of gnome merchants in the corner. Who else is in the bar? And let everybody give you one. I like that because it takes a little bit of the pressure off the GM to come up with something brand new, but also based on what your players tell you, they'll tell you kind of what they're looking for. If they describe a bunch of surly orcs that are all like pushing each other around and staring at the party, chances are they want some sort of a rumble in that bar. If they describe a bunch of, Jawa merchants with a bunch of droid parts, they're probably looking for something cool, come with a piece of gear for them, that sort of thing. I like to just use that, and I've gotten that out of other game systems. And lastly, I like pass with complication. The games that have just pass fail are not as interesting as you pass, you fail, you pass, but I'm going to give you a complication, or you fail, but you fail forward sort of thing. I think those are all things that I've taken and slapped into other games that I use, even if they don't have it in them initially. So those are mine. Bob?
Yeah, the one that really stands out for me is the one that Jerry just said. Minimize or eliminate pass-fail checks. If it's binary, excuse me, if it's binary, throw it the hell out. Success with a consequence is way more interesting. It's your friend. Use it. It's not hard to implement. Just do it. Another thing tangential to what Jerry had said about abstract gear, I really liked the Dungeon World abstract adventuring gear. Like, you have adventuring gear with 5 uses. Bam. All right, I need some stuff.
Yep.
I need the rope. Okay, yeah, I've got adventuring gear. Tick one off. And same with arrows. Similarly, Forbidden Lands. I've got food, I've got water, and I've got arrows. They're all a die.
Oh, dice consumables are great. That's a great piece of tech.
That is a really cool piece of tech. It's like, oh, you guys all have to sit down and eat. Roll your food. If you roll a 2 or a 1, you got to drop your die. Okay, great.
Yeah.
If not, you're managing your food. If not, you're managing your food fine.
Yeah. So I think that is a great element. Those are my.
I suspect we're gonna see some of that tech when we get to Twilight 2000.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited for that one.
Yeah. Yeah, those are my favorites. What do you got, Phil?
My first one is be a fan of the players. From the first time I read it in Apocalypse World till now, it encapsulates so much of how I actually like to GM. Right. I think I always did it. I just didn't know what to call it. Right. So like the second I saw it in Apocalypse World, I was absolutely enamored with it. Being a fan of the players is always going to be. It's a thing I drag everywhere I go. It's like Linus's blanket. The other one I really like is principles for the game. I love them in Powered by the Apocalypse games. I love the fact that other games are adopting it as well. Like I really have enjoyed Free League games have them in there quite a bit. So the first time I opened up,
what are principles?
So it'll tell you like if you've ever run a Powered by the Apocalypse game, it'll tell you that like these are the principles of the world, right? Like I could get one to make my point, but I honestly can't recite any of them off the top of my head. But they're the guiding, like when in doubt, these are like the guiding things you should do in your game. I'll go find one when we switch questions. And I'll read you a couple of them. But they've, for instance, they've also been carried over into Free League games like Tales from the Loop and things like that. But that will also tell you kind of these guiding principles on which the game runs. Little car alarm action going on. Thinking my parking lot. It's cool. Lastly, the other thing that I really like tech wise is setting stakes for skill checks. I'm with Bob. Binary skill checks are often pretty boring and limiting. And if I don't have a failure, like success with a consequence or, failure with, some sort of, bonus or whatever. One of the other things I like is to just change what the die roll is about and still let it be binary. For instance, take the classic like picking a lock kind of thing, right? The binary version of picking a lock is like, make this roll, you pass, you pick the lock, you fail to pick the lock, right? Pretty straightforward. But you can reframe that, and this I picked up from Burning Wheel. You can reframe that check to be, roll your pick locks to pick the lock before the guards come around the corner. You're still going to pick the lock. Really what the roll is, are you going to pick it fast enough to get through the door before the guards see you?
Yep.
Right? Or not. So I find that to be really interesting, and I find that to be kind of a cool tool. And I think you guys have seen me sometimes do it in games where I will stop and be like, okay, this roll isn't to see if you do X, it's to see if you do X before X or before Y kind of thing, right? Like and I like that a lot. I like that one. It's very useful, especially in games where the system is very binary. Like, it gives you some latitude to kind of change up what the binary result is for.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I'm going to kick the next question over. I think Jerry's reading it. I'm going to go and pop open a PBTA game so that when we hit the end of the segment, I will tell you some principles from some games.
All right. So Todd asked, how do you handle significant change to campaign based on real world events? For example, your storyline involves avenging a character's father's death, and then the player actually loses a parent.
Yeah, this is a tough one, because the main thing that you're going to have to do is maintain like sensitivity to the whole situation. Like, somebody's going through a lot of stuff, so ideally you want to sit down with everybody at the table, including that player, and talk about, you know, how you want to handle that with the game. But this person is going through a huge loss, and they may just need to step away for a while. They literally might be like, I can't be there tonight, and off. And that's fine, because you have to let everybody grieve and do their thing. So you definitely want to have a conversation with as many people as you can from the group to see about what you want to do. But ideally, you need to get that player's input on how they feel about continuing with the current storyline, and whether or not it's going to be a problem for them, or if some players would use that as a little catharsis to, like, you know, to work through what they're going through. You know, everybody's going to be different. But obviously, you definitely want to have a conversation and talk about it, because it's going to be a factor in what's going on. But you got to treat it carefully, because, you know, when somebody's suffering like that, you don't want to be like, dude, we have to figure out what we're going to do with this game. The game's not important right now. That person's, you know, life and emotions and what they're feeling, what they're going through, is the most important thing. So be there for them, support them. If that means they have to walk away and they can't be there for a while, then they walk away and they can't be there for a while. And then you can get back to it later. And that's, to me, is the big takeaway for that one. What do you think, Phil?
So I think this is, I think this can be tricky depending on what the event is, right? I think that the first thing you got to do is you got to stop and have this conversation with all the players, right? If you've, you know, like, if you've prepped your campaign, like we'll use Todd's example, or you've prepped your campaign that this thing's about avenging the character's father's death, and somebody like loses a parent in the game, like, you got to put your cards on the table, right? Like, you got to just come into the game and be like, hey, listen, this was my plan for the game, and this is what I had in mind. I feel like we need to talk about it, right? And it may be so obvious that you're just going to be like, I need to pause the game and change some things up, or I need to, like, you know, like, we're going to do a different adventure. Like, you may need to just radically change things, and it is okay, right? Like, once again, the show does not need to go on, right? Like, it is vastly better that you stop and talk about these things than barrel through any of these things, right? So you can just have that discussion. Like I remember way back in the day, we had a Connex game that did not go very long or well. But I was just in the process of getting divorced. And one of the players was like, hey, I was thinking of making my character divorced. Is that going to be a problem for you to GM? And I was like, huh. No, it's not going to be a problem. Like, it's cool, but thank you for asking, right? Like, it could be that, right? Which it could be like no big deal. You just ask and it's okay. It might be a thing where you just need to make some safety adjustments, fix some lines and veils, right? Where people are like, no, I think I'm going to be okay. I just like, it would be better if we didn't go into it in detail. Like I might have said to that player, like, I'm cool if your character's divorced, but I don't want to role play any scenes where you're fighting with your ex-wife. Right? Like maybe I'm just not comfortable with that, but you know, it doesn't bother me that your character's like, you know, recently divorced or whatever. Right? So you can just adjust lines and veils. And sometimes you just got to end the game. Like sometimes you just got to like be like, I don't think we can I don't think we should continue playing the game. It's not going to be good. We can always play another game. Right? Mm-hmm. Like for instance, we were on the cusp of starting so February of 2020, we were on the cusp of starting a Headspace game. Bob, Glenn, Tony, and I. And we were all set to go. And we had picked out Vancouver. We picked out our inciting event for the game was a global pandemic, right? Seemed cool, prepped all our stuff. And like 2 weeks later, we were in the middle of a global pandemic. And we just said to ourselves, you know what?
Nope.
Let's just not do this. Like, let's not barrel ahead. Let's just switch games. We'll play something else. It's not important, right? Like, there's always another game. So yeah, I think that it may suck. You may have been working on a thing and you have to jettison your game, but it's not worth pushing through, right? Like, you got to have that conversation. And I would like, if the event is significant, like in Todd's, like the death of a parent or something, if the person's like, no, I'm cool.
Are you?
They might think they're cool, but you could be like hitting a landmine in the middle of a game.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's just like better maybe don't like, or pause the campaign and play something else for a little while and, you know, come back to it later when it's possible. Like maybe maybe it's never possible. And you just got to be okay with that. I think we've all gamed a lot. We've gamed long enough, having about to notch my 40th year of role playing, that there's just always another game. Like there's just always another game. I think the thing you have to be concerned about with this topic is turning your gaming group into your therapy group. Right? Like that's a consent thing. Most people do not consent to be everybody's therapy group. And you know, wanting to role play something like this because you want to like role play through it is fraught with danger. Right? Like it's probably not safe. Your gaming group are not licensed therapists. Some things could go horribly wrong if it's mishandled. Like it is probably best to just walk away. If it's minor, you can probably fold it in with some lines and veils. If it's major, you probably have to jettison some stuff. That's my feels about it.
Yeah.
Jerem, how about you?
I think you've hit on most of it. I would say just discuss it with the rest of the party, especially the person involved. If they want to have it in the game and they want to dissolve, like you said, sometimes they want to resolve it in the game. They want to use the game to deal with it. They want to have a safe space to kind of express their emotions. Sometimes they just want to resolve it off screen and keep going. If the adventure deals with the death of a parent and the person has a parent pass away in real life, maybe you just shift the game around a little bit, focus on something else. If everybody still wants, if everybody and the player want to still keep doing the game, They just have that whole storyline, resolve itself off screen.
Yeah, jettison the whole thing.
Yeah, and go from there. Or do the opposite. If the adventure was about trying to, keep a parent, get the medicine to keep the parent from passing away, and their parent really passes away in real life, maybe you just, you guys succeed and move on. I think, like Phil said, you want to be careful not to have the game become a therapy session, but having it as a safe space that everybody agrees, and that's the important thing, a safe space that everybody agrees to consent to kind of do wish fulfillment, that can sometimes be helpful too.
If you're going to venture in those territories and you're not using safety tools, you absolutely need to deploy them for this.
Always have safety tools.
Yep.
Always have safety tools. And sometimes you just do something where you just have a feel-good game for the week, you have a downtime episode. We've done that where I've had players that were just having rough times in their life, and this week we were going to play a game, and instead of starting the next adventure, we're just going to do a downtime adventure where the players hang out in the town they like and get to interact with NPCs and have a good time and do that kind of thing. And do that for a week and give yourself some breathing room before you get back. You can talk about, do we want to keep doing this? But at least everybody has a fun time together with their friends.
Yeah, and I don't advocate stopping playing, right? If that player needs to stop playing, playing.
Yes.
But if that player is also like, I would like to keep role playing, like there's a whole lot of role playing you can do that's not going to be like, that doesn't have to tread on whatever that tragic event was. Like we can totally keep playing. We're just not going to play this adventure, or I'm going to just stop this, this adventure, and we're starting a new one next week because it'll be better.
Yes.
That kind of thing.
So that's pretty much it for me.
Cool. All right.
Well, that was our viewer mail segment.
Yeah, we hope that you enjoyed the community's questions. Hopefully we gave some decent answers, and hopefully some of what we talked about will be useful for you in one of your upcoming games.
All right, we're going to return to the Slack room one more time, or the chat room one more time before we head into the conversation corner.
I'm going to start real quick.
Yeah.
I'm going to start real quick because I have some PBTA books open, so I thought I would explain to Jerry. Right, so agendas, principles, and moves are the three things that are in the GMing section of PBTA games, right? So agendas are like the overarching big goals for running the game. So for instance, from Masks, make Halcyon City feel like a comic book. Make the players' characters' lives super heroic. Play to find out what changes, right? Those are like the big agendas for Masks. In Dungeon World, the principles are things like, let's see. I got the list right here. I'm just looking for a couple good ones. Never speak the name of the move. I actually hate that one. Begin and end with the fiction. Think off screen. Be a fan of the characters. Ask questions, use the answers. Give every monster life. Those kinds of things, right? So they're like the things that they kind of tell you, like when you're playing, do these things. And if I remember correctly, like in Tales from the Loop, one of the principles of the game is that they adults will never believe the kids.
Yep.
Right. So like no matter what the kids say, the adults will never believe them. And I took that one step further. No matter what the kids said, the adults misunderstood them.
Yeah.
Like it was always, and usually it was kind of a moment of levity, but the kids would like try to confess something that happened. And, the adult would look and be like, well, that's capitalism. Right. And just like totally not getting what just happened.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, that's those. All right, Bob, what else do we got?
Yeah, Senda was saying that she played a less than healthy relationship in a game, but there was a key boundary that they did actually care about each other, even though they knew the relationship wasn't any good. So they didn't just throw in, dive into the pool willy-nilly. There was boundaries. So there were parameters through which they managed that scenario. So I mean that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I think I think so many problems in role playing are solved with healthy discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, I mean, we could boil our show down to like, I mean, again, we've actually stopped giving out advice about talk to each other, and we've started giving out advice about here's how to talk to each other about this thing, right? Because the ultimate cure for almost everything in role playing is like a good structured discussion among adults.
Yeah.
So, you know,
the vast majority of things in life come down to have a discussion as adults.
Yeah. Yes. Right. Like, I mean, there's some truth to that, right? Yeah. There's, but the thing is, I mean, sometimes we do dumb things like not have our conversations. Other times we have trouble having conversations because we don't know how to say the things we need to say to people. Right. And you know, it's not the desire to communicate, it's the ability to convey what you need. Yeah. That can sometimes get tripped up. So yeah, I think it's important. You can do the, you know, slightly more traumatic stories, like traumatic to you stories, as long as you kind of communicate it up front. Like in Senda's case, like those two players had a good discussion about what was needed to make it safe. But for instance, right, like, you know, I had a period of homelessness in my life where, you know, I lived, you know, my mom and I lived at one of her friends' houses for a period of time. So I guess it wasn't really homeless, but we like did not have our own place, right? We were like, you know, whatever. But if I don't tell that to a group and then just decide to make a character that has that in their background because I want to like explore it, like I'm not being considerate to the group, right? Because what if I have a bad reaction to it? No one really is going to know why.
Yeah.
Right. But if I approach the group and I'm like, hey, listen, I think I'm pretty good with this event in my life, but I feel like I would like to explore it in the game. Would everybody be okay for me to do that? Provided that, you know, we can handle it safely. And if it becomes too much, I promise, like, well, you know, we can skip over it or back out, you know, like exit that storyline or whatever. Like that's different.
Yeah.
Right. Like you can have that discussion and I don't think it ruins the game.
No.
So I think that's key. Like there used to be a very bad school of thought when we were younger that like you had to like maintain like you only talked about what, you know, like what other players might, like what other characters might know, right? Like, and you didn't, like, you kept things inside or you sprung them on the table, whether you were a player, whether you're a GM, and like that meta talking, right, like was bad for the table. But like I wholeheartedly disagree. I think the best gaming
good communication never ruins a game.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm talking about beyond good communication. I'm talking about players and GMs collaborating together to make the story better.
Yep.
Yeah.
By talking about the story as it's going on. Right.
Yep.
Like I agree with you, Jerry, right? Like it's good to just be like healthy, upfront, candid, and say the things that need to be said and have those discussions. But I also think like when we were kids, like you would never as a kid, you wouldn't, like the GM made the decisions about what happened to the world. And you weren't, you know, like you weren't like, oh, you know, be even better than what you're saying would be like if the floor collapsed. But like, I totally believe that works better in games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, I love when players say that stuff to me. Like, I'm about to make a hard move and the player's like, you know, be a cool hard move right now. And I'd be like, please tell me.
Yeah.
Like, well, what do you think would be a cool hard move right now? Right. Because it in many cases is probably better than mine. So I love that stuff. I'm very much like, give me your input while we're playing kind of guy.
Yep. Cool.
Good start.
All right. I think we're good. Let's bounce over to the conversation corner.
Mm-hmm.
You're killing me. There we go. All right.
We're looking good on time.
Yeah.
Like we're in the lane.
Yeah. I'm into season 5 of Community now. Had a couple of episodes that were like real emotional. I don't know how to do spoilers for anybody, even though it's been out forever. You know, no reason to spoil anything for anybody. But But yeah, in season 5, there's an episode that's like, oh, really? Oh, man. A little squirting some tears. As we stated earlier, we watched the Eternals. I watched Shang-Chi again, and the behind the scenes making of thing on Disney Plus. There's a lot of cool stuff in there. It was nice to have company over a couple of times. Once to just hang out, and then once to play games. Got to throw a board game on the table that I had played a couple of times, and I've had for like 2-3 years. Most people haven't gotten to play, and that's the third Forbidden game.
Oh man,
Forbidden Sky.
Oh, that game's hard.
Trip.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It's a cool ass game, but man, is it hard.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like Nintendo hard, man.
We were playing it on simple. We got our asses. We played it on simple. We lost twice, and we were like, you know what? We're just gonna keep playing just to see what the end of the game looks like, because the end of the game is cool as hell.
Yeah. So yeah, that was cool. Looking forward to the as we mentioned earlier, the Spider-Man trailer did drop right around 8:30. So I've got it queued up, ready to go.
Me too.
Apparently, there's still some stuff that hasn't been resolved, according to what I'm hearing about this thing. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens between now and December when the movie hits the theaters. But
it's a trailer, not the movie.
I know, but it's that whole who's going to be in the movie thing, you know. And anyhow, we won't go too deep into that because we don't want to bore people with some of that. But yeah, it's I think it's going to be a kick-ass movie, but that's just me. I'm biased because I'm a Spider-Man fan. But yeah, that's enough for me. Jerry, what do you got?
Well, first we saw the Eternals, and I was very pleasantly surprised and enjoyed it. I knew it was going to be good, but the trailers didn't excite me at all. I was like, oh, it's going to be fun, but the movie ended up just being amazingly good. True Marvel fashion, the trailers don't show you like 90% of the story, which is excellent. I compared it to Chinese melodrama because there's a lot of, especially after having just seen House of the Flying Daggers, there were a lot of similar beat structures in that movie, and it was perfect. It was really well done. Characters were very well done. They obviously didn't get a chance to flesh them all out, but everybody got their thing. You got a feel for what each of the Eternals was like and what their personalities were like and how they dealt with each other, and you know, what's it like when you've been a found family for 7,000 years? Imagine getting stuck with your family for 7,000 years. Okay.
I got to admit, there was a twist I did not see coming.
Yes.
Like, when that twist got revealed, I was like, whoa. Like,
there are two twists in that movie that are related to each other, but the first was like, well, fuck. And the second one was like, well, fuck.
Yeah. I was actually pretty impressed. Normally I kind of see those, like I'm pretty good at seeing like those things coming, but I was like, when it got revealed, and again, I don't want to spoil anything, but when it got revealed, I was like, well, now, okay. Like that changes a lot.
And there are two end scene spoilers, so definitely stay through the entire credits. The second one comes after all the credits have rolled.
Yeah, there's a mid and an end.
And they're both excellent.
I will say this: if you are a longtime fan of the Avengers, like stretching back into the 80s, you're gonna be impressed. Like, yeah.
They nailed it.
I'm honestly, like, I was like, well, now we're just pulling characters out of the backlog. Like, it's good. It was good.
As Phil mentioned, this was another example of Marvel saying, we're going to tell this kind of story. We're just going to happen to have it set in the Marvel universe. Mm-hmm. But they didn't just take a story and put characters in it. They did something with this. This is a melodrama with superheroes doing superhero stuff. Something that bothers me about a lot of TVs and movies these days is that we get stories that are superhero stories where they never do anything superhero-y or never use their powers, never get to show off. Never, this is another example of like the Winter Soldier, which was basically, a spy story where you just happen to have superheroes running around, but they did all superhero stuff in the middle of a spy story.
Yep.
This is the same thing. I like that. So I'm looking forward to everything else Marvel's going to roll out. I'm just at this point, I was like, you know what, just throw it.
Just keep piling it on, man. I'm buying. Like,
yes,
I'm with you.
This was not the low point of the Marvel universe by any stretch of the imagination.
Nope.
I kept watching Metalocalypse. It's been kind of my downtime brain cleaner. I really like the show. I've been getting in more and more. This is like my fourth watch through, and so I'm finally able to pick up on some of the. I'm watching it with subtitles this time, so I get a chance to understand more of what some of the song lyrics are. Because if you are a fan of death metal, the actual performances of music in the show are just top notch. And it's funny sometimes where it'll start to show you the lyrics of the song, and it'll just say metal gibberish. And but the show's good, and it's got a story that develops. The first season is kind of like every episode separate, and then after that, it's all building towards a bigger story. So. Third thing was Schmitty came. It was just fun to hang out with Schmitty for day after day after day. Get to see Schmitty, hang out with Schmitty, game with Schmitty, which leads into board games. Got to play board games a couple times. A bunch of board games all the board games I'd never played before. Was it the Quacks of Quarberg, which was
that game was fun. That potion game,
ridiculously fun. We played the Forbidden Sky twice and lost twice. We played Pandemic the Cure twice and lost twice.
I'm a big fan of that game. I brought that one. That's a fun variant of Pandemic.
And fast. It was a lot of fun. And Fairy Tale, which was also just a neat little deck builder game that was quick and fun. It was really quick. I was amazed at how once we got the mechanics down, that game went through real quick. It was a lot of fun.
I'm actually glad it was quick because by the time we brought that one out, I was starting to fade. And I was like, I think I have one more game in me, but that was like pretty low key. And even then I made a big mistake that would have cost me a lot of points if I hadn't figured it out in the last draft.
I made a bunch of mistakes in round one that kind of irked me. So it was good. My wife and I love to watch some of the HBO dramas, and Succession is in season 3 now. It has just been over the top, and if you like it is everybody's the bad guy capitalism. It's about a greedy capitalist family that is trying to vie for who is going to take over when the father retires, and he's not a nice guy to begin with, and so it's a bunch of really bad people having really bad things happen to them because of their really bad choices. But the actors are excellent. Brian Cox is in it, and Kieran Culkin, and another just a bunch. What's his name? The bad guy from Hackers.
Oh,
he's in this.
Mr. The Plague.
Yeah, Fisher Stevens is in it. And last season ended with a major surprise / cliffhanger, and this season is just all dealing with the repercussions of that. But it is a bunch of actors bringing out their A game and having a good time. And lastly, I just built a lot of the new Batman movie is coming out, and I had some points, so I picked up the new Batmobile, which was a lot of fun. So I just had some time just relaxing and kind of doing some stuff. And the Bat Cycle and all that. If the movie is as good as the toys, the new Batman movie is going to probably be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it anyway. But the toys are really well done, and I've always been a fan of Batman and all of its iterations. I don't know if I could tolerate watching Batman and Robin again, but the rest of them were interesting. We had that discussion about the Tim Burton Batmans versus the other Batmans versus the Adam West Batman and so on. So that was me. Phil?
Yeah, I was hosting Schmitty, so actually like most of my normal weekly routine was a little thrown off. So I didn't get a ton of stuff done. I did all the stuff you guys said. Like we played NBA or played Knights Black Agents, Eternals, board games. I did just do some Schmitty and I did some repairs to my PS4 controllers to to replace the batteries on them. The batteries were a little whipped, and I discovered that you can just buy aftermarket batteries. So and a little kit for cracking them open to replace the battery. And rightfully so, when we cracked open that first controller, the whatchamacallit, the battery was like bulging inside of it. Like I took the battery out and I'm like, whoa, this battery like is not good. Like, so I replaced those, and so now the game actually has batteries that will last or controllers that will last a reasonable amount of time. I also downloaded Star Wars Battlefront 2. I've only played a little of it because I was waiting for it to finish loading and installing. So I'll probably get a little play on that tonight just to give it a try, especially now that I have controllers that will last for a while. So that's good. And I have 30 minutes left of The Good Place. I started watching the last episode during dinner, didn't realize it was a longer episode. I get about halfway through it and the feels are already starting. There was already a couple of things that have happened where I'm like, oh boy, I'm not ready for like how this is going. So I get a feeling I'm going to finish it. I'm going to go finish it now because I don't think I'm going to wait till morning, but I'm pretty sure that's going to hit me right in the feels. And then after the Disney Plus Day news, my next series that I'm going to start watching over dinners and breakfasts and stuff is I'm going to go back and watch the X-Men animated series. I was like, cool, I'm just going to binge my way through this really quick. I have some fond memories of it. I remember it not being, it's still an animated kids show in the 90s, but like it hit most of the serious X-Men themes, like and storylines. So I'm like, cool, I'm gonna go check it out. Like I'm gonna go rewatch a bunch of those and just kind of relive it since there's gonna be new episodes, and that's pretty damn cool.
Yeah.
So
you know what Disney needs to do now? Disney needs to get off their ass, and they need to make more gargoyles.
I mean, yes. The problem with gargoyles is you got to go like, first of all, I think they lost one voice actor already, right? Because Ed Asner's passed away, hasn't he?
Yes, I think so.
Right, so you've lost one voice actor. You're gonna have to go get the other ones, which is gonna be kind of hard because that's most of the cast of Next Generation.
Yeah,
like
it's true.
Yeah, like most of the cast of Next Gen were the voice actors for Gargoyles. Though I will say this: if you have never seen Gargoyles on Disney, just go watch it. Like, it is some of the coolest animation from the 90s. Like the animation's good. The story is just so good. And if you're a Star Trek fan, and I know we have many of them here, literally most of the cast of TNG are the voice actors. Like some of them are there permanently, and some of them, like the rest of them, just make appearances all through the series.
Yeah, good time. That was my first animated character crush too, Detective Elisa Maza. Oh yeah.
Yes, I do remember. It's got everything, man. It's got magic, and it's got modern shit, and corporate bad guys, and romance, and it's
got the Stranger in a Strange Land element.
It's
got everything.
There isn't anything wrong with, like, it's just good. Just get some cakesters, sit down, watch some gargoyles, like take a couple days off from work, like doesn't matter, just do it. There you go. All right, Should we roll on out?
We should probably do the
so.
rolling on out.
Mhm.
We are back around to the Royal Court again, so we would like to give a big patron shout out to Andrew Misdirected Mark, word scramble. Andrew Dacey, the Warden of Whiskies. Andy Olson, the Duke of Dice. Bread, the Royal Mead Maker. Craig, the Lord of One Name. Chromatic Chameleon, the Queen's Spy Mistress. Eric Bonts, the Duke of Gators and the Lord of Beefness. A bit more cheese? Our very own GM Gerrymander, the Lord of the After Show. Jesse Edmond, the Royal Doctor. Jim, the Royal Merchant Emeritus. John Carney, the Court... Oh, come on, you're killing me here. Misdirected Mark, word scramble. John Carney, the Court Necromancer. There we go. Kevin Lovecraft, the Royal Beard. Richard Wyatt, the Captain of the Royal Airship Fleet. Schmitty, the Keeper of the Labyrinth. Tiberius Starcrash Smith, the Baron of Britannia. Todd Crapper, the Prophet of Probability. Just going to hang it up after this. And Richard Ruane, the Queen's Frog Ambassador. And thank you to everyone for listening tonight.
Indeed, indeed. If you are free on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. the Queen's time, you're welcome. Come join us live on Twitch, where you can chat with the other listeners in the awesome chat room for life and ask us the occasional question.
And if you can't make it to the live show, check out our podcast each week wherever you get your podcasts. And take a listen to some of the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, such as They're a Super Geek, Mastering Dungeons, Bonestone Obsidian, The FM Gamers, Pandas Talking Games, The Gnome Cast, Jangu Hustle, The Lounge, Bonus Experience, and remember, you can catch back episodes of the amazing She's a Super Geek. You should and can also check out our sibling podcasts, Tabletop Bellhop, The Knights of the Night, and the always amazing Gaming and BS.
Yes, sorry. As I forgot our own closing. You know what? Before you ship off a question to us, leave us some feedback. We'd at least like to know how this went. You can reach us directly, the old-fashioned emails, mmp@misdirectedmark.com. Hit us up on the Twitters. The show, the network is at Misdirected Mark. He's Robert M. Everson. He's GM Gerrymander, and I am DNA Phil.
If you like what we do here and on the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, you can support our Patreon campaigns. MMP, Mastering Dungeons, and Pandas Talking Games are at patreon.com/MMP. Jangu Hustle is at patreon.com/Jangu Hustle, and Bonus Experience is at patreon.com/Bonus Experience. Patrons of MMP, Mastering Dungeons, and Pandas Talking Games get access to the after show, pre-production show notes, musical parodies, the Bamboo Lounge, and other special releases.
It's been a Misdirected Mark production, the media arm of Encoded Designs. Mic drop.
We out.